Tallboys and Trackmasters is brought to you by Expert Exhaust. Expect more for your money. MTB Shock Dock, your choice for suspension needs. High Gear Success. From helping racers get sponsored to motorsports event operation and promotion, shift your passion into high gear.
Track 93, the place to get ready to race.
And by IADV. From routes, guided tours, and more, we'll help you get lost.
Yeah, for some reason, when I see a lump, my sphincter tightens, I start to tremble, I go all sweaty.
I'm a big fan of the 1.5 pork chop cans, personally.
You gotta make sure you get your protein and carbohydrates all in one shot.
Yep.
Nice looking bike.
That thing would look good with a hot fender too.
Yes, it would. Yeah.
Got the line.
Yes, it does.
What is going on, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to episode 88 of Tallboys
and Trackmasters. It's got the old twist top cans and my the 110 millimeter I haven't been able to lose yet.
Give it time. It'll end up missing two. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we know it's been a little bit, but we have, dare we say, an electrifying episode to share with you all tonight. Count down the puns. That's number 1 of 1,000 tonight. But before we get started, please make sure to like and subscribe. It really helps us out and gets us out where we need to be. And we hope we can continue to give you guys some great content. So, Trevor, like I was saying, it's been a little bit since we've been back on the show here, and a lot has happened here in the last few weeks. I know that we had the 6th annual 304 detour that we just wrapped up. How was your experience on the old detour?
Let's see. Hot, humid. Mother Nature really set us up for success this year. I didn't hear a single soul complain it was too easy. I, in fact, heard somebody complain it was too difficult this go around, who was coincidentally one of the people that said it was too easy following the dry spell last year. Fred and I spent a lot of time on Fort Hill helping guys out some of those hill climbs and ledges. Had a guy on an XR 650R, which you're very familiar with, have some hot starting issues that I thought we were just going to have to leave that thing there. But overall, it seems that it went pretty well. And what was your experience with it?
Well, I was, as always, stressed out like I always am, and
Sure.
Wanted to make sure that everybody had a good time. But yeah, Mother Nature was definitely a hindrance and a help this year. It definitely made the difficulty factor crank to 11, as they would say in Spinal Tap. But, overall, I really heard all kinds of good stuff. Everybody had a good time. It was good to see Kane from Appalachian ADV and his crew come down to
That was cool.
do a little training class and experience what West Virginia has to offer. There was obviously a lot of dropouts with the weather forecast, but I think everybody that showed up did have a good time and successful. And anytime everybody shows up, rides a bunch of motorcycles, gets to camp, hang out, no one gets seriously injured, it's a great weekend. So I think it did go pretty well.
It was a good time.
Yeah,
It was
always.
a good time. I got a chance to throw a leg over one of the new KTM 390 Adventure Rs. Interesting. I don't know that I'm going to rush out and buy one.
Yeah.
I understand KTM's trying to hit a price point with these bikes, but the lack of a hydraulic clutch after several years of my EXC's Brembo hydraulic clutch kind of ruined me. But I don't know. Handling wise, it was just a little odd.
Yeah.
It was like a mid-sized to big bike frame, but it felt like the ergos and the handling of it didn't match, I guess, what I thought I was going to get out of that frame.
Yeah. Well, speaking of the KTM 390, I got to see one live and in person at the dealership when I picked up my new motorcycle. Got to pick up a 24 leftover Gas 700, which looking over here to the left of me, and it's teasing me. And I got to take it out and ride a few times. Really like the 690 701 platform. So wanted to retire the old 500 EXC and do something a little bit different. Got lots of parts coming, so make sure you guys stick around and watch for some of that stuff. And yeah, so far so good with that bike, and pretty sure that Heather's sick and tired of seeing boxes show up on the front porch for parts for that thing. So
yeah, we went through that. I'm pretty sure that we had FedEx, UPS, and USPS sick of delivering to our place when we were putting together Shiloh's Trail 90, because I had parts coming like every single day for 2 to 3 weeks.
Yeah, I was able to pick up a couple of local things off Marketplace fairly cheap, which helped out in the build. But yeah, I think seats coming tomorrow, exhaust is coming tomorrow. I've already got a lot of parts from Rottweiler, which is synonymous with that platform for improving their performance and whatnot. So looking forward to that process and putting that thing together and replace the 500 slowly. So
nice. Of course, I just got back from a week in Colorado. Definitely want to get out there and ride sometime.
Yeah, that's the worst part about, I feel like, us being so ingrained with this hobby and this sport is whenever you take a trip somewhere, you're supposed to, maybe you're enjoying hiking or doing that type of thing. I'm the same way. I'm just looking around like, man, that trail looks like it'd be so much fun on a bike.
Yeah.
All right, buddy. Well, let's get into tonight's shocking episode. It's Electric Boogaloo, episode 88. And we were, of course, talking about electric dual sport and adventure motorcycles. Now, there's I know there's a stigma out there immediately off the bat with 90% of the people that do this hobby, and that, the cons are going to outweigh the pros of this, and we don't want to hear about it. But I feel that the technology has progressed to a point where we're starting to see more viability in this sector.
I agree.
And I think it behooves us to do an episode about this. So,
and it's going to go a similar direction of 3D printers. Like when I was in high school, early 2010, somewhere in there, 3D printers were huge, expensive, and the results you got out of them were really not that great. They were good for like prototyping. And now, as you're very familiar with, you can spend a couple $100, $400, and get something that can produce excellent results. So like most emerging technologies, it just become more affordable over time. I think that electric bikes are going to follow a similar path.
Yeah, I agree with that wholeheartedly. And, talking to Ryan Melton there, I think at this point it's been a year ago now, but, he brought up one point when we were talking about, local motocross tracks shutting down. And one of the key factors in that was noise pollution.
Yep.
And I feel like, electric dual sport and adventure motorcycles may be a segue into riding in some areas where regular motorcycles aren't allowed, some forestry land or some, BLM properties or hiking trails, what have you. I think that kind of appeals to the Greenpeace side of things, where it's, it has that moniker of not being polluted, and, that was one point that I really did take away from our talk with Ryan was, the viability of electric motorcycles from that standpoint, where you're not going to have that noise pollution and honestly the, emissions pollution, so to speak.
Yeah. I agree with that. It is a tale as old as time. You've watched it happen with, almost every single dirt racetrack in the state. Is a developer or real estate firm finds a piece of flat land. It's like, it's cheap. It's cheap for reasons because it's right beside a racetrack. And then, people move into their $500,000 townhouses that share walls and then complain about the noise and get it shut down. And then complain about people riding illegally.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I definitely see, a future for electric bikes in that realm. But, at the same time, the other half of my brain wants the 250 two-stroke era of, motocross back.
Yeah, I totally agree with that as well. So that's kind of what's the deal with the dual sport and adventure bikes on the electric side of things. So we kind of mentioned a few of them. We'll go through a little bit more with the pros. So, one thing obviously we just talked about is, the lack thereof of noise pollution, emissions are down. I know we've talked kind of off camera too, a little bit about, honestly, the performance, the sheer power and torque that you get from an electric motor is insane.
Yeah. So by design, especially a brushless electric motor, you can produce virtually max torque at stall. So it pretty much 0 RPM. That's why all these electric bikes, there's some pretty significant power delivery management stuff going on, because if you just had an electric motor with a potentiometer, throttle switch, battery, all that stuff with nothing to interrupt the signal or condition in between, you wouldn't be able to keep it out, from under you at a, taking off from a stop or something like that. It'd be the equivalent of, a CR 500 or something like that, and hand it off to a 12-year-old.
Yeah.
But something that's really attractive for me for electric bikes is, I'll call it the perceived ease of maintenance.
Yes.
Anybody who has a 4-stroke or a 2-stroke, anything that burns fuel to make power, you are going to have to maintain it. Some bikes are easier than others. Valve checks aren't the most difficult thing on a KTM, for instance, but if I could get away from having to do them, that'd be nice.
Yeah.
Or top ends, or worrying about, your mains, your big end bearing on your crank, et cetera, et cetera. It would be pretty attractive to get away from that. No more worrying about air filter maintenance.
Yeah, you got to think about that. Just go down the list. Like you said, air filters, clutches. You're not replacing clutch baskets, clutch plates. Transmissions. I mean, a lot of these electric bikes are just a single drive, so you don't have to worry
especially the brushless units are actually just modulating the pulses of the the magnets and stuff that control the motor to achieve your effective gearing.
Yeah, and then I think another pro that may get overlooked a little bit is just ease of operation. If you're trying to get somebody new into this sport and starting out, like you said, with the way that the electric motor and the controls can kind of modulate the torque profiles, a Joe Blow off the street is going to find it a lot easier and enjoyable experience starting out, at least, to go that route and start with an electric motorcycle.
We talk about the affordability crisis of this hobby consistently. So one thing that I really like the idea of when it comes to electric bikes is, with mapping, being able to modulate and control that power, you could buy, as a beginner, somebody who previously rode a bicycle, for instance, you want to start getting into riding, moto, you buy one bike, you start it on map 1, and it simulates, say, a 125 cc 4-stroke. It's not going to get away from you. You can learn the basics, learn traction, learn braking, etc. And then as time goes on, you can step up. So you can have one single bike that could simulate anything from a 125 4-stroke all the way to, say, a 450 motocross bike in terms of power. So that's great, because otherwise you're talking about having to change bikes multiple times throughout your riding career, until you get to the point where you're satisfied with the platform you're on and you're not going to outgrow it.
Yeah, that's a really good point. The electric bike grows with you. You're not trying to grow and having to buy, multiple different motorcycles to step your comfort level and skill up.
Although you should.
You should, yeah. There's nothing wrong. I got 3
multiple motorcycles.
Now, I've got 3 sitting here right now. I know you have a multitude as well sitting.
I think I got 5 right now.
Yeah, my old man's got at least 20 some. So yeah, there's nothing wrong with that. But maybe you're a guy like Greg Blakey, our buddy in DC, who doesn't have a lot of garage space to accommodate all those bikes. Like you're saying, that one vehicle can kind of do a lot of different things. So and
then you don't have to stock, like, I got a hot cams kit of shims for my my KTM, well, actually fits pretty much every KTM, and I believe most betas. But you don't have to have that. You don't have to have the, I don't call it expertise by any means, but the knowledge of doing a valve service. Like, there's a little bit of a learning curve to it.
Yeah.
Especially if you've never turned wrenches and stuff before, it's somewhat daunting, especially, you know, you're taking your engine out of time in order to do it. So if you're not comfortable with a process like that, you're going to be worried about, you know, being a tooth out on one of your camshafts or something like that when you put it back together. And you know, we've seen the horror stories on the forums. But yeah, just the ease of maintenance just seems pretty attractive. And you know, I think for electric vehicles, there is some foundation in the concerns of battery longevity when it comes to cars, for instance. Like, obviously, you know, you would want a battery that would last an electric car the amount of time that an engine would last in an internal combustion vehicle.
Right.
Unless you're, you know, like a Ford or a Chevy guy or something like that. But like, for me, big Toyota guy, I want it like 250,000 miles.
Yeah.
Right. But
probably not getting that out of a Tesla.
No. But ideally, battery tech would be sufficient that you could get the equivalent of like 20,000, 30,000 miles out of a battery on a, you know, electric bike. That would be fantastic, because there's not many dual sport, like lightweight dual sport engines out there that are going that distance. Yeah,
unless you're talking about like a Japanese 650 or something like that. Yeah. You know, you're not
lightweight.
Yeah, it's not happening with the lightweight. Maybe a WR250R, but those are discontinued.
Those things are in a class of their own. We won't get. I won't get riled up about this.
Well, let's get riled up with some cons of electric motorcycles, and there are quite a few. Many. One big one that, I mean, obviously sticks out immediately when it comes to our hobby specifically is your range.
Yes.
You know, unless you're a commuter that is driving 5-10 miles to work or riding 5-10 miles to work, you know, if you're trying to do an event like we just did, the 304 Detour, a whole weekend deal, you know, I don't like how a lot of these electric motorcycle manufacturers fib on their range. Like, it's, you know, at 30% throttle capacity on a dead flat straight, yeah, you might get 108 miles of range out of it.
Yep.
If you're truly out there using a dual sport or adventure motorcycle like we like to use a dual sport adventure bike, probably lucky to get maybe 50 miles out of it. Let's just be honest.
Yeah, and that is insufficient, in my opinion.
If
you had a backyard moto track, that'd be fine. But, you know, for a lot of us, we're riding 10 miles, 15 miles, 20 miles plus to the trail, from the trail, not counting the actual miles you're putting it on the trail. Very little of the trails around here are flat. So there's a lot of stuff that's, you know, counting against electric bikes in that realm. But, you know, I am confident that as time goes on, battery technology will continue to improve.
Mm-hmm.
The question I have is what effect will that have on purchase price?
Yeah, that's another con, because not all, but a good bit of these electric motorcycles are substantially more expensive than anything else comparative in the gasoline segment will get you. You know, the just for example, like the Zero adventure bike is like $22,000. Like,
yeah,
$22,000 will get you what, basically a Ducati Desert X. Like,
better yet, it would get you, say, a KTM 690 gas 700, what have you, and then it would get you a lightweight EXC that you could set up specifically for woods. Because one of the first episodes we ever did was about there is no unicorn bike yet. Given that amount of money spent, I would split it into 2, maybe 3 bikes. I think that'd be a better use of your money. But I mean, we're in an age where a 4-stroke woods bike is is it 12 grand?
Yeah.
A 4-stroke woods bike, 2-stroke woods bike, they're quite similar in price. None of it's cheap.
No. Yeah, it's not a cheap hobby to begin with.
Yeah.
But
if you look into like your cost of maintenance over say 3 race seasons, of an electric bike versus doing like regular top end services, valve checks, et cetera, to send a cylinder out and have it bored or re-nickel-sealed, or to send a head out and have valve seats recut and stuff like that. Since there's no mom and pop shops that do it anymore, it's pretty expensive.
Yeah.
But the range on electric bikes is a huge con. They're going to continue to lie about it, just like they do on electric cars. And same way that traditional bike manufacturers lie about wet weight and dry weight.
I was just getting ready to say that.
You look at the projected weight of whatever bike, for instance. You dig a little deeper, and it's like excludes fuel, excludes coolant, excludes oil, excludes tubes in the tires,
fork oil.
Yeah. We filled the frame with helium. Unlike CRF 250Ls that they filled them with lead.
Yeah. Yeah. To kind of go along with, a con being the range, and I think this does kind of tie in. It's really dependent on your area too, what the infrastructure is like to be able to charge that machine when you're not at your house and you don't have the charger with you. Like, an EV friendly state such as California, Washington. Yeah. If you go and do a 50, 60, 80 mile adventure ride, chances are you're going to be able to find a station with some type of plug, or I know a lot of these brands sell like plug adapters to go in like the Tesla chargers and stuff. Yep. Here in West Virginia and some of these more remote places, you're not going to find that. So
in the areas that I would most wish to ride, there is no charging infrastructure.
Yeah.
If you drew a Venn diagram of areas with charging infrastructure and areas I wanted to ride in, they're 2 circles that are 4 miles apart.
Yeah.
That's another problem. And I'm about to contradict myself. I'm aware of that, but it would be fantastic for these bikes to have onboard charging systems such that you didn't need like the little, suitcase size, whatever, or wall adapter or something. You could just take like a computer power supply cord effectively and go from a 110 outlet to your bike. And the way I'm going to contradict myself is the weight.
Yeah.
I want a feature like that, but I don't want the weight of a feature like that. But I mean, like we said, there's pros and cons to all of it. There's no magic answers yet.
You imagine having a say the Big Zero adventure bike pulling a trailer with a little Honda generator in the back to keep it charged the whole time, right?
I like the idea of it. And then you could put like a little rooftop tent on top of the back of the trailer, and
just have a whole adventure unit there, right?
Yeah, it'd be kind of cool. Yeah. But some other cons, try to brainstorm a little bit more. It's not really a con because you're going to experience it with an internal combustion engine machine too. But your chain and sprocket wear is going to be consistent across the board, and another thing is tire wear.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, you're not
having had some higher horsepower, higher torque machines. You can smoke a fresh tire in very short periods of time if you're heavy on the throttle. Yeah. I know a lot of guys with the performance Teslas, especially guys that bought the new GM electric Hummer. You can accelerate like crazy, but it's still the same rubber connecting you to the ground.
Yeah.
And then that additional torque is going to translate into chain wear, sprocket wear, etc. But that's not something you're going to get away from no matter what you do. And,
I think it's probably a little more pronounced with the electric bike though. But going into it with the idea that it's zero maintenance, that's not the case. Like you still have suspension that you're going to have to service, wheel bearings, like you said, chain, sprockets. There's still maintenance needs done.
Yeah, that's another potential con is parts availability.
That's true too.
So it is a pretty volatile market for electric bikes currently. What was it? Alta was going to be the next big thing, and due to some mess with Harley that we'll talk about, that doesn't. It's gone. It's done. Like your experience at GPX. When you buy into a lesser established brand, you accept the risk of when you need parts that's either difficult to find or you can't get them, period. That was, KTM's electric bike was attractive despite the lack of range and other limitations, because it shared a lot of components with the EXC line. Think about, chain and sprockets for a KTM EXC 500 or 350 fits like way back from today, versus a lot of these bikes are likely running, I wouldn't say proprietary sprockets and stuff like that, but when you take a group of designers that they're breaking some new ground, they don't necessarily have the pedigree of having worked with some of these other OEMs. You're going to take some liberties with your parts procurement when it comes to supply chain stuff like that.
Yeah, they really do have the same issues as, like you mentioned, like some of these lesser known or Chinese companies. Like the dealer network's not really established as it would be a normal, say Japanese or European brand. I remember telling you and talking to some guys when I was at AIM Expo that sold some of the kind of knockoff Sur-Ron, more mountain bike-ish dirt bikes. And the main importer was such a small company. It was just a few guys that relationship with the dealer network was not there, and it was not very well put together, because the guy that I was talking to was complaining that he had sold a couple of those bikes to some friends and family of his, and like 3 days later, the manufacturer put this thing out on social media talking about how they lowered the price of all their machines $1,000.
Same thing happened to Tesla owners.
They didn't communicate that with any of their dealer network, so now this person's got family members pissed at him because they feel like he overcharged them. So you have to watch that as well, that there's a lot of give and take with these importers and these specialty companies. And I think that's also a con of, I don't think any of these manufacturers are out to, kill the market when it comes to gasoline motorcycles. Maybe Stark is, maybe some others, but you have to keep that in your mind, that this is more of a cool technology and niche thing than it is to replace than be the be all end all.
You can like different aspects of both, and I think people are way too polarized in their thinking when it comes to electric bikes. I love the sound of 2-strokes. Love my 4-strokes. I love vintage bikes, and not to sound too negative in this case, but the idea of being able to dust one of these electric bikes off 20, 30 years down the road from your grandkids, or getting out of your shed or your barn, it's probably bricked. That's it. I brought a 1970s Trail 90 back to life from the crank up. If you have basic mechanical knowledge, you can do it. But the thought of trying to troubleshoot, something's leagues beyond a PLC. We are so far away from relays and stuff like that. It's all controlled with boards. A lot of the components now are surface mount. They're not through mount like the old school stuff that had a little pigtail that stuck through the back of the board. So they're even more difficult to change out, say, a capacitor, resistor, etc. And at least in the case of like Chinese bikes, like Zongshin engine bikes, there's forums currently dedicated to those bikes, troubleshooting them. If you dig around long enough, you can find the cause of your issue and remediate it. Unless something like that springs up, and forgive me, it might already exist, in a appreciable format, but I haven't gone looking for it. But unless a equivalent, form or something like that springs up for electric bikes and troubleshooting, after these manufacturers are defunct, it's going to be really difficult to go through and troubleshoot some of this stuff.
Yeah, I was actually really upset and sad to hear about, the whole deal with Alta and Harley Davidson, because I actually got the chance to throw a leg over on Alta at the High Point Motocross National there about 3 or 4 years back. And, I went into it with that mindset of electric's terrible, this is never going to be a thing, yada, yada, and was absolutely blown away by the performance of that machine. I rode around the little grass track that they had on Mode 3, and it felt just as good as any 450 race bike I've ever ridden. And I put the thing up on the highest map mode, which was 5, I think. And, it was like a nitrous fueled CR500. It was just completely unrideable, but, you could do it if you wanted to. So that was kind of neat. But
something else that I was thinking about, I was grabbing another beer, listening to you talk about that, is it would be great for an electric bike to be able to simulate the ride characteristics of a 4-stroke on say easy gravel, pavement, stuff like that, but also have a map that was more similar to a 2-stroke.
Mm-hmm.
If you wanted to get rowdy and some technical stuff, for instance, like just essentially a ramp power curve to simulate a power band would be pretty interesting.
I'm sure they could do that, and also kind of set it up to have like a certain amount of engine braking. Like a 2-stroke doesn't have as much as what a 4-stroke would be. So.
Yeah, so that's another thing. A lot of electric vehicles utilize regenerative braking, but electric vehicle weight isn't near as much of a concern. There's probably some additional management systems, things like that need to be in place. I'm a little bit ignorant, so forgive me. There might already be bikes that have something like that, but that would be a good use of regenerative braking, is to simulate the engine braking of the 4-stroke, for instance.
Yeah. All right, well, let's get into some of the popular models. Now, this is not a be-all, end-all list. I haven't went through and researched every single manufacturer that currently makes this. This is just the most popular models that we can see and find. And first up is the Zero Motorcycle Company with their DSR X, which is an adventure bike. Big full-size machine. We'll take a picture here. There she be. And all of its glory. Let me pull up some of the specs here on the old DSR X. And we'll go down through. Top speed of 112 miles per hour. It has a claimed range of 179 miles, 169 foot-pounds of torque, and it charges in 1.1 hours. And it costs the low price of $22,995. Let me see if I can find a weight on this thing. And maybe some other little specs here. Yeah. Says it has their largest capacity battery, which is a Z-Force 7.3 kilowatt per hour. And the charging port is supported by over 100,000 public EV charging stations. They're actually partnered with the BDR, Backcountry Discovery Routes, and they've integrated some charging infrastructure onto BDR's maps, enabling Zero motorcycles to be used with them. That's kind of neat.
Nice.
It actually has every BDR map already uploaded into its onboard computer and mapping program. Yeah, so that's kind of cool.
For that price, it better come with a guy in a Jeep with a Honda generator that follows me.
Let's see. It is the first electric motorcycle with Bosch's off-road motorcycle stability control. So that has a little bit of features on it there. I'm trying to see if there's any kind of weight. It does have Showa suspension front and rear with 7.48 inches of travel, compression and rebound adjustment both front and rear. That's not the worst in the world. It has different ride modes: standard, eco, range, sport, and canyon, all available through their dash interface and through the customizable app. Yeah. I mean, it's a good looking machine. It looks like it has tubeless wheels, looks like a 17-inch rear and a 19-inch front, which, is kind of standard for a lot of bigger adventure bikes these days. Yeah, that range is probably the most out of any of the motorcycles that we're going to talk about here this evening. A lot of nice features. Did not know the BDR partnership. That's actually pretty interesting, especially in our sport here. So, yeah. Now, Zero also has a more kind of hardcore dedicated dual sport, which is called the FX. And I can go ahead and pull up some specs on this one. Obviously, a little bit more hardcore, a little bit more kind of tuned down or stripped down bare bones, if you will. Top speed of 85 miles per hour. It has a range of 102 miles, 78 foot-pounds of torque, a 1.3 hour charge time for $12,495. So almost $10,000 cheaper than the adventure bike that they offer. Let's see, go down through some other specs that we have here. This thing charges with a simple 110-volt household outlet, which that's going to be very accessible.
Nice.
And cool. It has a 650-watt onboard charger, so every outlet is a fueling station. Let's see, and their website just crashed. That's not a good sign.
Every outlet being a fueling station is ideal. That's one of my biggest apprehensions, aside from range, of getting an electric bike.
Yeah. Let's see here. Let's pull up some chassis specs here.
Just based on the image.
Okay, it's actually belt driven. That's interesting.
That's what I was going to say. Based on the image, that appears to be belt driven.
Yep. So it's got some kind of mixed bag on the range here. So city riding is 102-mile range. Low speed highway commuting 65 miles. High speed highway commuting 57 miles, which is I would say that's our normal dual sport riding.
What about Hoonigan?
38,
what about
38
Hoonigan?
miles. Let's see. This one also has Showa suspension front and rear, fully adjustable compression, rebound, and preload. 8.6 inches of travel in the front, 8.94 in the back. This
got
has
good ground clearance.
Yeah, very good ground clearance. 21-inch front, 18-inch rear. Comes with Pirelli Scorpion MTs. Let's see. It weighs 289 pounds and can carry a person up to 341 pounds. So typical cost to recharge, 81 cents per kilowatt. Interesting. I will say, at least for Zero, they really do go out of their way to put up a lot of the specs and stuff, a lot more than you would see on any kind of other motorcycle brand.
So something else I appreciate about Zero is they don't oversell their stuff quite to the extent that some other manufacturers do.
Right.
I know several years ago, all you heard about was how great the Stark Varg was going to be. And, they have not produced the numbers that they had anticipated.
Yeah, well, I think part of that was you had to basically pay full price before they'd even start building the thing.
Yeah. I'm sure if we go back long enough in our episode catalog that we've got some episodes from around that period of time talking about that exact topic.
Now I do know there are some. The dealership network is a lot better, and there actually is some of those floating out. I know Travis that owns Go Race Suspension down in the southern part of Virginia actually has a dealership. He's a Stark dealer. I do see a lot of stuff that he puts up, but Yeah, well, we might as well talk about the old Stark since we brought it up here.
Yep.
We have talked about this in the past that Stark did release a fully street legal dual sport model called the EX. I will say, out of all of the electric adventure dual sport motorcycles available, this is probably the most serious attempt.
Yep, I
Yeah,
agree. I've seen some hard enduro guys making some content with those things and beating on them pretty good. So
let's pull up some of the Stark EX stats. I mean, you can see this thing really does remind you of the old Alta just because it looks like an actual motorcycle.
Yep.
And we'll get into that here a little bit later, how a lot of these electric motorcycles, that's a really big quotation because a lot of them look like mountain bikes with electric motors on them, which, for the most part, that's what they are. So, all right, let's see here. The Stark VAR EX comes in at $12,990. You can get it in two different horsepowers, actually. The 60 horsepower is the $12.99, and the 80 horsepower is the $13.99. Suspension set up and pre-sprung for someone between 165 and 200 pounds. They're okay, here we go. Here's some more stats. Yeah, 80 horsepower, 264 pounds wet weight, has 764 foot-pounds of torque, up to 6 hours of riding time. It takes 2 hours to charge it, and it does come with a no questions asked 2-year warranty. Let's see if we have any other specs on here. Let's see. Range. This is kind of cool. There's a chart that pops up on their website, and it's showing you the different ranges. So if you're doing like motocross riding, it says beginner. You get an hour and 18 minutes out of it on a motocross track. Kind of middle of the road rider will get an hour and 6 minutes out of it. And if you're a professional racer, you're going to get 37 minutes out of it on a motocross track. Hard enduro, an amateur hard enduro guy will get 6 hours and 1 minute out of it. The pro riders have been getting 3.5 hours out of it for a hard enduro. And then regular, like it says, enduro or dual sport, a professional guy is going to get an hour and 56 minutes out of it. Middle of the road guy, 2 hours and 18 minutes, and a beginner, 4 hours and 6 minutes. Now, I'm not sure who the gentleman is that's been doing the hard enduros on the Starks. Other than I know, we had some issues with a certain Austrian rider in the Enduro Cross series with it. But I did see a video. I think it was Enduro One Media shared, and it was at Erzberg where the guy made it like about halfway around the track, and they swapped the battery out on it, and it was like 2 bolts. Like suitcase style, popped out, set the other one in, and was gone. Like literally, those guys had it down pat where it wasn't any slower than like a normal gas and goggle stop. I was pretty impressed with that.
That was pretty sweet. I think especially for a race oriented machine, a hot swappable battery is going to be a necessity.
Yeah.
Until the range can catch up, to what? Yeah. What's necessary?
Let's see. The Stark has built-in navigation and trail recording, fully customizable power and engine braking. So
Nice.
That's something we were talking about there. Now, I do know you sent me this a few weeks back, how there was a company that was making basically a clutch for the Stark.
Yes.
It was like an electronic setup. That was kind of interesting watching that. This is cool. They actually have a cost comparison. Over 100 hours of usage, the Stark Varg EX versus a traditional 500cc European dual sport. This is cool. So they're saying over 100 hours of usage, which I assume is going to include a motor rebuild with whatever 500 dual sport you're
I wouldn't know what it's like to get 100 hours out of a machine. I ride KTM.
So they're saying the Stark Varg will have an annual cost, an over 100-hour cost of $594.58 versus a normal European 500cc dual sport at $6,326. So, yeah, according to them, you just throw it away and buy another 500 dual sport for $6,000.
My question is that parts, or is that I take it to a dealer at the end of the race season and say, fix everything that I effed up?
I would assume that's probably hard parts and charging costs.
Yeah.
I would think so. And that probably the same with the Dual Sport 500 is, gasoline and insurance and stuff like that.
It is. I just had a thought. So again, we talk about the affordability crisis of the hobby of dual sport riding, but for guys that race like local hare scrambles, especially guys that have kids that race local hare scrambles and similar events, having a bike that doesn't require engine maintenance would free up a significant amount of time throughout a race season.
It's very true. Very true. All right, that's about it for the Stark Varg EX, which I think we can both agree upon is probably the most serious option in this list that we're going to talk about. But one of the new ones that we mentioned on a few episodes back, which was actually pretty interesting, is the new Can-Am Origin. So let's pull up a picture of this bad boy. And there she be. Now, kind of has that, I'm going to almost say, scrambler-esque motif to it. It kind of, to me, this is like the new Royal Enfield 450 Himalayan of the electric bikes.
The low front fender really makes it look different. Also notice single-sided swing arm.
Yeah, like BMWs and Ducatis and stuff.
And it appears that the motor is actually part of the swing arm.
Yeah, so it's like a stressed member.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Whereas other bikes, it's pretty close to where your countershaft would come out on like a normal gas-powered bike. Whereas on this, it's, I don't know, a good 6-8 inches back from that. So maybe as a result, you get an enclosed belt drive that's, sealed from the elements. Because that's my big apprehension for a belt drive is mud, dirt, etc. Shortening the life of something like that. Whereas with this setup, if it does have an enclosed belt or chain, I suppose, that's even less maintenance to worry about.
Right. Let's go through some of the specifications here on the old Can-Am Origin. Let's see. Starting price is $14,499. They do have a slightly more upscale version called the Origin 73, which includes a windscreen, some different colors, LED lights, and what they're referring to is their Plus package. It's $16,499, so another $2,000. One thing that does kind of separate the Can-Am Origin from any of the other ones is the battery is liquid cooled with an onboard charger. So, that's pretty cool technology there, having a liquid cooled battery. Let's see, go through some of this other specs here. So the Can-Am Origin is actually chain driven, Trevor.
Nice.
Yeah. It's a fully enclosed silent chain producing less vibration and noise with an auto tensioner. Let's see. It does have active and passive regen, putting power back to the battery. Actually based off of the brakes and the chain drive itself. That's kind of cool. This one has reverse.
Wait, what?
Yeah. You no longer have to push with your feet when going backwards. Count on Can-Am technology to help you put your mind at ease. See, this thing will go in reverse.
So that makes me wonder, how heavy is it exactly that reverse was a necessity?
Yeah, let's see here. It has front and rear KYB suspension with 10 inches of travel.
Nice.
So that's only second to the Stark. Oh, yeah, get me a personal loan offer. I don't see anything.
You guys take Marlboro miles?
I don't see anything about the weight, so it probably is
Probably
pretty
for
heavy,
good
I would
reason.
say.
Just from a frame geometry standpoint, the front end looks pretty raked out.
Yeah, it does. Probably slow to turn, but you also do get some stability being raked out.
You do. Yep, you do. Which, if that's a more adventure-oriented machine, which it might be based on the size and the weight, a little bit more rake out front makes more sense.
It's very true. It's cool nonetheless, and it is good to see Can-Am getting back into the motorcycle market, be it an electric bike. Maybe that kind of bodes well for them in the future to do some other stuff like that.
Plus, Can-Am being a pretty established manufacturer with a significant dealer network.
That is very true.
Does make it significantly more promising than, say, a Stark or a Dust.
Yeah. Well, let's go to one of the last ones, which, these two could kind of be put together in their same category, but the next one is the Sur-Ron Ultra B. I would say out of all of the mountain bike based chassis, the Sur-Ron is probably the most well known, kind of biggest dealer network and best, I guess you would say. But I think at the end of the day, the Ultra B is trying to be a motorcycle, but it kind of fills that role of a weird heavy duty mountain bike, in my opinion.
Yeah. I'm inclined to agree. The ergos and everything based on the guys I've seen ride them is definitely closer to a mountain bike. It's not a full size dirt bike chassis. I believe the wheels are smaller. The front wheel definitely looks smaller than a 21, for instance. But
let's go through some of these specs here really quickly. Top speed of 56 miles per hour is the lightest one in this bunch, and it should be at 187 pounds. Max torque at the rear wheel is 324 foot-pounds, which being that light, that's pretty impressive, actually.
Yeah.
This thing probably gets up to 31 miles an hour very quickly.
That's the beauty of electric motors.
Let's see if I can find lightweight forged aluminum alloy frame. Has their own in-house suspension, which they call the Intersect. It actually has a 19-inch rear wheel and a 21-inch front. So
wow,
there you go. You actually do have
that's what was throwing me off, was the rear being a 19.
Yeah,
it really, that combined with the angle of the image, it almost looked like it had like 17s front and rear.
Yeah. Charging time 4.5 hours from 0 to 100%. Let's see. Has a perfect weight distribution of 50-50. Let's see. It has 3 levels of traction control. It has 4 different riding modes. It has reverse as well.
Interesting.
That's very interesting. 9.4 inches of suspension travel front and rear, fully adjustable, compression, rebound, and preload. Onboard charger. That's cool.
Nice.
It's right under the seat.
Especially on a smaller frame bike like that. That's a great feature.
Lots of different, options and availabilities here. 54.3 inch wheelbase, 35.8 inch seat height. That's actually pretty tall. That's 12.5.
So maybe this thing is a little bit larger than what I recall. Like when Sur-Ron first came on the scene, they were like significantly smaller frame machines.
Yeah. Max range of 62 miles. Actually, it's a 19 front and rear. My bad.
So not a 21 up front.
Not a 21. It's 19 front and rear.
Okay.
Yeah. And again, you're getting into that realm of like super hardcore mountain bike style of electric bike. And that was our last topic here. Was when I went to AIM Expo, I think the most numerous display that there was these Taiwanese and Chinese and off-brand mountain bike based dual sports. They were street legal. Most of them were able to be insurance and licensed onto the street. But like, it was just like any other Chinese thing, dude. There was 90 different companies making, the same 2 different models being sold by 1,000 different importers. And it was pretty well overwhelming at that point. But, typical in that fashion, it was more mountain bike based. Like the biggest wheel set you saw was like a 14 and a 16. It was, I would say, more for like street commuting, or like you would say if you had a little motocross track in your backyard. It wasn't something that you were going to dual sport or adventure ride around the country. So lots of different options and availabilities on there. Just like the Hawk 250s, go on Amazon. You can pick out whatever color one you want.
Yeah.
And get it sent to you. So, I think kind of in closing a little bit on this topic, we've touched a lot of different things. I think that if the infrastructure for charging improves in areas that people want to ride, if a company like Can-Am or some others that have a very well-established dealer network, customer base, can convince people that electric motorcycles, dual sports and adventure specifically, are viable, you're going to see more of these out when we do some rides and you do different events. But I think at this point in the game, it's more niche than it is mainstream or going to take over the current market share.
I agree that in their current state, they're still somewhat of a novelty. I've talked about in the past about wanting an electric trials bike at some point down the road. And, given the application, an electric trials bike is more viable than electric dual sport due to, you're already riding something that has limited range and no seat regardless.
Yeah.
But, yes, as far as adventure bikes, dual sports, etc., we've got some time and some additional development in battery technology, charge speed, etc., before we can get to something that I will be itching to buy.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think out of all of them, and you probably agree with this sentiment as well. If I was to pick one, I think it would probably be the Stark Varg EX. I think that would be tickle my fancy the most out of all of these options that we have. Now, that Can-Am Origin, I think that would be a cool option as well. I think that's the 2 most I would be interested in. Having a liquid cooled battery, you got to put Dex Cool in your Can-Am.
I think as battery tech improves and discharge rates increase, you're going to see a lot more liquid cooled battery systems out there for heat management.
Awesome. Let's get through.
I cannot wait to bust a radiator and get stranded on my electric motorcycle.
Yeah. Oh man, I flipped my Stark on Fort Hill and put a rock through the side of the battery.
Yeah, I ran a stick through the radiator of my electric motorcycle.
All right, let's get through some of the comments we got tonight. We appreciate everybody tuning in and interacting with us here this evening. Ryan Michaels says, what's the range on the Varg EX? I think we talked about that. They said it was about 120-ish miles if you're easy on it. He says his Electric Motion XR gets 25 miles and he's 225 pounds. His EM has a regeneration braking and you can adjust it. Yeah, I think that's a common theme that we see on a lot of different e-bikes. And Mr. Doug Wall says, boo, hiss. He must hate electric motorcycles. Well, I know he's liking that new 350 gas he bought. That's for sure. All right, ladies and gentlemen, let's get into some industry news. We do have a few things to talk about here tonight. All right, Trevor, are we about to see the return of cheap, bulletproof trail bikes? Because
I'd like to see it.
Big Red Honda has released the new CRF 300F. The cheap do-it-all air-cooled machine features a 293cc air-cooled single-cylinder engine, 6-speed transmission, fuel injection, 41mm Showa front end, and an entry-level price of $49.99.
That is... that's very attractive.
It's needed. it's needed, right?
Yeah, I agree. We talk. Well, this is the third time I've said it. I think on this episode, we talk all the time about how unaffordable it is to get into the hobby. That is a no-brainer in my opinion.
Yeah, that's a new XR200 in my eyes. That's a bike that you can buy. Anyone can ride. A first-time person's going to, fit comfortable on it. I really do think that they're going to hit it out of the park with that. Now, I wish the price was a little bit lower, but I do see that it's still, with inflation and stuff, it's still cheaper than most options out there.
Well, unfortunately, the addition of fuel injection very rarely comes with a reduction in cost.
It's very true. Well, we kind of mentioned them earlier in the episode with Harley Davidson. Trevor, they got a new CEO. Did you see this? I think I sent you a thing about their new CEO.
Yeah.
There he is. His name is Artie Stars, and he's taking over head honcho duties for the Hog Crankers. The current Topgolf CEO will try his best to save an American iconic brand from circling the drain. This is the second consecutive CEO that they've hired, though, with zero ties to any automotive industries. Artie is also the former CEO of Pizza Hut, who he pretty well ran into the ground when he was their CEO. And Topgolf itself isn't doing very well. They're pretty much on the verge of bankruptcy. So, I mean, is this the final nail in the coffin for old Harley Davidson?
I don't know, man, but I definitely don't quite get what drives a company like Harley, who's not only not automotive, but a motorcycle brand, but also like their own weird lifestyle brand.
Yeah.
To get a CEO who has no ties to any of it at all.
I saw a journal report on him. Like, the dude's never owned a motorcycle, never even tried to ride a motorcycle. Like, then they did. That's what they just had the issue with this last guy. Like, well, he was like the CEO of Lacoste, like tennis shoes or something. So,
Harley's issue, in my opinion, is the new models don't particularly appeal to young people. I know there's some young guys out there that are shovelheads, knuckleheads, etc., for the nostalgic value, and they like to wrench on something, and I get that. But the people that have money to buy Harleys are the people that immediately take issue with, if Harley plans to unveil a smaller displacement, more commuter oriented, still fun, still Sportster-esque or something like that, or Dyna-esque bike. All these purists that play dress up as outlaws on the weekends really have an issue with it. And, the image that Harley, rode the wings of for decades and decades is hurting them now.
Well, I think at the very least, you could get your Pan America with a new option that has a space to haul your golf clubs and a Pizza Hut pizza on the back.
Now, what would be even better would be to just have a pizza oven on the back of your Pan America.
Oh, there we go. Delivery bike. I like it.
I like it.
Yeah. Maybe it'll have the little the little thing that you see at the driving ranges where it picks up the golf balls on the front.
You got to get a one little like Pizza Hut delivery driver signs that goes on the top of cars. It goes on the top of your helmet.
Yeah, I can see that. That'd be good. All right. Well, that's going to lead us to our last and certainly not least program. A little Had to Lay Her Down.
Did you run into some clippings? Did Barb take the kids? Well, Hoss, maybe you had to lay her down.
Tonight's Had to Lay Her Down is a little electric Sur-Ron clippings, and you can see that we got an entire gang of Sur-Rons tearing up these streets, but it doesn't make you that good of a rider. Let's let it play out. Boom! The face gets me every time.
Look at all the wires hanging off the side of that thing.
Got wire clippings hanging out there.
Wire clippings.
All right, ladies and gentlemen. Well, that's going to do it for us this evening. Again, we appreciate you sticking out with us and drinking some beer on another episode of Tallboys
and Trackmasters.
See you guys next time.
Yeah, thanks, guys.